podcast pre-production. How can you master this first step of the podcasting workflow? Well, you're gonna find out the answer to that in this video. Hi and welcome to a new video of The Podcaster Lab TV, the YouTube channel dedicated to helping you become a better independent podcaster. And this video is all about the first step of your podcasting workflow, which is pre-production, everything you do before hitting record. This step is really important because this is where you're gonna think about what to talk about in your upcoming podcast episodes. And not only that, but you're also gonna think about how those fit into the bigger picture, which is your overall show, or even bigger than that, how those fit into the bigger picture, which is your show, and your show, how actually it fits into a bigger picture, which is your business. If you have a business and your podcast is related to your business, then there has to be a connection between what you talk about and your business and your entire show and your business really. So this phase is where you brainstorm, where you ask yourself the question, what am I gonna talk about? Which angle am I gonna use to cover the specific topic? Who am I gonna interview if you have an interview-based show? Which guest am I gonna focus on among this pool of potential candidates? Those are the questions you want to ask you when it comes to the pre-production of your episodes. You don't want to wing your episodes. You want to do a little bit of planning so that you're always going to bring your A game as a host, as a communicator, as an interviewer. And the advice I have for you, and it's an approach I've been using for a couple of years now and has allowed me to be super duper efficient when it comes to planning and brainstorming, and is to think about macro first and micro later. And here's what I mean. When it comes to brainstorming, some podcasters think about a specific episode and they spend quite a lot of time thinking about it. They think about the topic, about the points they're gonna touch upon. If they interview somebody, they're already gonna think about the questions, really in a detailed manner. The way I go about things is actually different. I do a quote-unquote general brainstorm when it's for my podcast episodes as well as videos such as this one, by the way. And that is, I think about the upcoming episodes, the upcoming weeks, the upcoming months. So I think about a puzzle in a way. And I think about, let's say, the next 2 months. And instead of just thinking about one episode, I think about that episode and the upcoming episode at a general level. What am I gonna talk about? What is the topic of episode 1 gonna be? What about episode 2? What about episode 3? So I do that at a general level. So I come up with a sort of editorial calendar. And then for each topic I come up with, I write down a few bullet points that just come to mind. So I don't spend too much time on the specific episode. I spend just a couple of minutes on each episode just to have an idea of the topic and a couple of pointers that came up at the top of mind. What that does is suddenly in 15-20 minutes, I have mapped out an editorial calendar for the upcoming weeks or even couple of months, which is great. As a podcaster, you always want to have some episodes in the can. You always want to make sure that you have some episodes that are ready to go. Obviously, you don't want to record today and publish the same episode today. If you don't want to be stressed, you want to have some episodes in the can. And personally, I have found that this approach has been fantastic because after 10, 15, 20 or 30 minutes, I can look at the work I've done. I'm like, great, now I know what I'm gonna cover in the next 5, 6, 10, 12 or however many podcast episodes or videos because I've written the general topic and a couple of pointers for each topic. And I do that for interviews as well, by the way. The only addition is that instead of just the topic, I add the topic and the name of the potential guest. If you have a business and your show is related to your business, always keep it at the back of your mind. So as you're mapping out your podcast episodes, your upcoming episodes or videos, if you have a video show, always think about what's happening and is about to happen in your business. If, for example, you have a product launch coming up, it makes sense then to touch upon certain topics that allow you to naturally mention your product launch into the episode. So don't think about your business on one side and your podcast on a completely different side. Think of them as parallel, as a railway if you want, where they are next to each other and they go in the same direction. In terms of how to actually go about the mapping of your ideas, there are different ways you can do that. You can take pen and paper if you're old school, you can use post-its, you can use a blackboard, you can write on a wall, or you can use digital tools. Personally, I'm a huge fan of digital tools for the fact that in the tools I can add images. If I come across an interesting article, I can easily add the link to that. So for me, it's easier to then go back and find everything in one place rather than having some post-its here, some notes there, some links saved somewhere in my computer, and then I have to go and look for things left and right. There's plenty of options. There are project management tools and apps like Asana, or my go-to one, which is Trello, and I'm gonna tell you all about Trello in a different video. Or you can even look into something like the podcast planner, which is designed to help podcasters and independent podcasters just like you and I. So once you've found your tool, you want to have a section that is dedicated to your upcoming episodes, and you want to have an editorial calendar. You can decide whether you want to have the two in the same space or to have, let's call it, a board for your actual publishing calendar and a board that it's your brainstorming ground where you brainstorm ideas. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, the way you go about it. I have two different ones so that I can really focus on the brainstorming on the one hand and then the publishing on the other hand. But that's up to you, whatever suits you the best. Just make sure that you have these two components in mind, brainstorming and publishing. If you host an interview-based show, make sure to look into a scheduling tool. That's a resource I mentioned as a must-have, even if you're a podcast guest in a different video. And what a scheduling tool is something that allows you to avoid back and forths with your guest. For example, if you want to interview somebody in a different time zone, you will have to ask them where they are, what time it works, what day it doesn't work, and so forth. And you risk to be really there in front of your computer for quite a lot of time. With the scheduling tool, on the other hand, you just set up your availability, you connect it to a calendar, like Google Calendar, for example, and then you have a specific link to a page that you share with your guest. And you don't even have to worry about the time zones and all those kind of things, because the tool recognizes automatically the time zone your guest is in, and it shows your availability in their own time zones, which is great. And in addition to that, on the scheduling tool page, typically you can also add information, instructions, and things like that. So if you really want to avoid back and forths, you can add information there, like what type of interview it is, how you're gonna be recording the episode, if there is something you need from your guest in advance, let's say a short bio, a photo, or something like that. If there are other notes you want to add there, you can do all that with a scheduling tool. So instead of then you having to list all of things out in your emails to your guest, when you reach out to them, you can simply say, you can find more about the show and pick a date and time that works for you on this page. And that's it. That's as simple as that, really. So now the question becomes, how do we actually systemize the pre-production step of the entire podcasting workflow? Well, I shared some tips with you already in this video. So what you want to do is you want to have a way to brainstorm content ideas. If you have a co-host, you want to make sure that your co-host or co-hosts have the ability to join that brainstorming board as well. That's why, as I said, I'm a big fan of digital tools like Trello and Asana. If you have guests, you want to set up a system. Typically, you can do that with a scheduling tool that helps you reduce the back and forths you guys have to do. If you have a set of questions you ask to every single guest, you can add information to those onto your scheduling tools page. And keep in mind that some scheduling tools actually allow you to really connect certain steps so that you can automate the processes. For example, I know that Acuity Scheduling works with Zoom, which is a popular tool for recording audio and video content. So if you're using Zoom, you could look into Acuity Scheduling and connect the two so that as soon as somebody picks a date and time for the interview, they receive automatically all the information, including the link for the Zoom call, in their inbox. Other schedulers work with other tools via a tool called Zapier. Zapier is kind of a bridge. It's a tool that allows you to connect tool A and tool B and do certain things automatically. So if you're using a scheduling tool already, I would recommend you look into Zapier and see what zaps, what automations they are, so that you can really set up the system and have it work on autopilot. I'm not gonna lie, at the beginning it's gonna be not that easy to really have this flow, but after a few times you do this, it's gonna be a natural thing really. So what you wanna do to systemize the pre-production of your podcast episodes is map out the different steps I've talked about in this video. So think about what you typically do before you hit record. Think about the brainstorming, if you have a co-host or you conduct interviews. Think about how you can bring those people into the conversation. Think about your business and how that is connected to your podcast. And then think about time. For me, time is what has been really a game changer. For example, for the brainstorming, it's not something I do every week. It's something I typically do every few months or even every quarter. So every quarter I may have 20 minutes, 30 minutes or an hour where I sit down, I focus on the brainstorming and map out content ideas for the upcoming months or quarters. As I said, it takes a moment for you to find your sweet spot, but once you do it, man, oh man, things are gonna change. So now grab some pen and paper or look for Trello, Asana, or any other tool you may be using already, and literally start writing down the steps that are involved in your pre-production. Brainstorming content ideas, reaching out to guests, prepare the questions, send them the questions, or add them to your scheduling tool. So really map those things out and then start to address those in a more efficient way. For example, instead of emailing guests every day, why don't you say, okay, once a week I spend 1 hour to search for potential guests and email every single person on my list on the same day. And that's it. And I don't think about that for the rest of the week, so that then you have time to do other things. Great. This is what you need to know to systemize the first step of your overall podcasting workflow, the pre-production. In case you're wondering what the other steps of the podcasting workflow are, I've actually discussed those in a previous video. A final note, if you haven't already, make sure to, number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and number 2, enable the notification setting so that you are notified as soon as a new video has been published. And in the next video, we're actually going to look at the next step of the podcasting workflow, podcast production, and how we can systemize that.